Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So we have been talking about how to find peace within us, to stop battling internally, because that's the only way we can contribute to peace in the world. And I had downloaded this meditation and connection to kind of get us in touch with the parts of us that are at war with ourselves, to reveal to us and show us and how we are not at peace. But the amount of work that needs to happen may seem like the magician pulling the handkerchief out of his pocket. Behind every handkerchief, there's another one. And there seem to be almost like an endless series of issues, ways in which that we are not at peace internally. However, if you're doing the morphogenic listening exercise, which is what we talked about last week, if you go deep within your heart space, and it has to be done with the right spirit, and I want to expand on this today, and I want to talk about this. When you let your head drop in the middle of your chest, when we do the exercise of the morphogenic listening, when you create a mind and a heart coherence, where the neural net of your heart lines and syncs with the neural net of your brain, and it creates a different way of seeing the world, a way in which Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda's lineage called the second attention. You begin to not calculate the way the frontal lobe and cerebral cortex does by measuring, adding, subtracting gains and loss. You stop being tactical and linear, and you begin now with the heart involvement to begin to perceive things holographically. You begin to see it as part of a morphogenic understanding, where multiple places around the universe, and when I mean by morphogenic field, we create a torsion field around us when we're in that space, but that small torsion field which we exist in, which is about 8 feet in diameter, is now linked to the morphogenic field or the torsion field of everyone on Earth. And I don't mean just human being, plants, because everything exists in the torsion field. So you're now linked with plants, insects, animals, minerals. You're linked with everything that's alive, that's animated, that's supposedly inert. Even the planet itself, even the heliosphere itself is a torsion field. Even the Milky Way galaxy is also a torsion field. And even the universe is a torsion field. So you're suddenly linked with the infinite network of knowing. And the perception that this brings is nonlinear. It's not about calculating and measuring and counting beads. It's not you with taking a calculator and measuring and doing a mathematical formula. It's a complex and dynamic dance of things moving in and out of alignment and exchange of information and communication. And there is a greater, bigger, and immense consciousness, which you could call God or Shiva, however you want to call it, that is actually dancing and allowing data and information, because everything in the universe is information, or potential for manifestation that's matched with information. And it brings data and information that's needed to the places where there is a deficiency, because the entire multiverse is there to do one thing: to balance and equilibrate itself. Anything that's out of equilibrium, that morphogenic field is trying to balance out. Therefore, it's important for us to understand that when we are in that space, we are back in sync with infinity times infinity and the very pulse of the universe. I want you to understand how powerful this simple little thing of dropping your head in the middle of your chest is. And when you do it, it's no more for 10 minutes, no more, you don't have to do it for any longer than 10 minutes. Because the after effect keeps you in coherence for hours, where you begin to perceive and sense in a very deep and very different way. You know information, packets of information becomes to come to you, you have awareness, you have understanding. And this is what we need right now, because there are too many global events that are so catastrophic and so terrifying, whether it is in America, the gun control issue, whether it is climate change, whether it is the war, however, there are all of these things that are so big that you and I need to have clarity. And that clarity is lacking, even for me, given the fact that there are these global events or creating the perception of loss and grief. Many things that we took for granted, whether it is the way a government used to work, whether it is the way your work, the security of your work, whether it is the identity, who you thought you were, okay? Whether you thought you were a caregiver, whether you thought you were your profession, whether you thought you were your social interaction and your emotional connection to people, all of these things are being shattered by the flow of energy that's gonna take us and lead us into the new earth. Thus, it's creating the biggest emotion that the planet needs to deal with now is how to process grief and loss correctly. And the loss could be loss of identity, loss of friends and family members, loss of a job, fear or loss of finances because of the global inflation and the supply chain problems and prices going up for food and etc. There's so many things that are going on where now every time I go to the supermarket, it's like an extra $10 for the same amount of thing that I was buying a month ago. You know, I went to a restaurant to buy some food. It was the same thing. It was like, wow, the same piece of chicken that I buy, all of a sudden I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's so much more expensive. Last week, the price it was this week is $3 more. So when you're looking at all of this, it's creating all these insecurities and it's creating a sense of where is this leading to, right? And as it stands right now, my grief, my personal grief is right in front of me. Today will be 1 month that I lost my mother. She passed on May 12th. And there are days that I'm okay. There are other days where I'm not okay. The first Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I was not doing well. The best way I can describe it is that I couldn't eat. I felt a constriction in my core, like somebody had poured lead in my esophagus or my digestive system. If I eat a little piece of it, one day it was a tiny piece of, half of a pizza, just a tiny piece. That's all I had. And I don't usually eat pizza, none of the pasta, none of that stuff. But everything else I tried, I couldn't have an appetite for. And I was like, okay, let me have a piece of this. And when I know my body, when I grieve, this is the way I grieve. There was a constriction inside of me because the discomfort and the pain inside of my stomach does not allow anything to go down. And the reason why I'm saying this, it's that when you go into the morphogenic listening, and that exercise really helped me a lot to help process this. When I went into the morphogenic listening to process this, and I surrendered deep within, and it's how you're acknowledging or backslash polarizing the feeling that shows up in the morphogenic field. Because if you're feeling, for example, like grief and this kind of discomfort shows up, and I am angry, I am yelling at God, I am, because there are 5 stages of grief. I am depressed. I am, I have rage. I have all of these emotions, or sometimes it's 2 or 3 of them at the same time. If I am, and because I'm feeling rage, for example, and I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm feeling depressed, I may say to myself, this is a bad feeling, you have to change this. That's the wrong approach. You're not going to solve the problem. When you go into the morphogenic field, and I'm using this particular example, but it's more recent to me, stop labeling the feelings or the sensation or the perception that the field is bringing you as either being good or bad. The best way to describe this is that when I went in, I know what was going on inside of me. I am feeling like somebody fed me lead and there's a blockage in my core. That's all I acknowledged. That's what I was feeling. This is what it felt like. Not that it's a bad feeling and I have to figure out a way to get rid of it. And when I went in, acknowledging it as not being bad, but as being a teacher, I went deep within. I sat in it. This is exactly the story of Kuan Yin I recounted to you last week, how Kuan Yin was able to go deep with her own sorrows and her own despair over what was her father did to her and all the suffering that she had in her life. She went deep, deep, deep within. And when you go that deep and you acknowledge all of these things that occurred without qualifying them as either being good nor bad, rather it's a feeling and it's a perception, because feelings are not actuality. They are a temporary state of consciousness. They are like a food coloring that you add to a dish. And if you think at the moment that they are actuality and they are everything and you will never get out of the state, you are making a mistake. So it's to acknowledge at that moment that you're in the state that I am feeling, I'm feeling at the moment this particular sensation, but I'm not going to qualify it as being a bad feeling that I have to figure out a way to get rid of. Was I confused? Absolutely. Did I like clarity? Yes. Is this my normal state? No. But that's the point of the back door of transition. It's to create chaos and confusion so that I could learn and I could expand. So let me sit with this and acknowledge the fact that I am grieving, and I'm grieving a loss. Is the loss simply about my mother? That's one of the things that came true when I sat with it long enough. And yes, I felt the loss of my mother. I miss her terribly. I want to kiss her on her forehead. I want to tell her I love her. I want to, I want to look at her eyes. I want to see her open her eyelid. I want all these things. But is the loss really simply about my mother? No. No. There are lots of other things in my life, because grief, the way you experience it like an accordion. When you're experiencing grief, you don't experience just the instance, the most recent loss. Every loss that you have ever had opens up like an accordion. And this is why it's so overwhelming. Because all of it just opens up. So when I sat with it long enough, I realized, no, I was not just grieving this. I realized a lot of things about myself and the state of, since pre-pandemic, my life was in a different way. I was much more social, although my social interaction was always limited to my students. Okay, whether it is that we were going to go upstate or Guyville, whether it is that we were having classes, etc. And I'm a big hugger. I love to hug people. So it was that human contact is important to me. And this is one of the things I missed a lot about my mom, is that I want to hold her. But, you know, just to hold her, to have that human contact. So I realized that I am living a sedentary life. I could have been a monk in a monastery somewhere. There's no difference with the kind of lifestyle I'm living now. I don't go hang out with any friends except for one. Once a week we go out for lunch, and that's it. That's it. I don't have any, because of COVID and social distancing and the restriction, a whole bunch of other reasons. And also because when you're working in this kind of high elevated spiritual path, the people that you have commonality with become thinner and thinner and thinner. Because the kind of conversation, I know a lot of people, but a lot of the conversation that a lot of these people I would have to have with them, I would lose interest very quickly. It's not that I'm superior. It's just that I have different interests. And I find, and particularly now, I know a lot of light workers. I've been doing this for a long time. So I could go hang out with a bunch of light workers. There was a group I used to hang out with once a week that we would go to a diner very late at night, and we would stay until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometime. You know, typically it's around 1 o'clock in the morning, and everybody would leave an 24-hour diner, and we would sit down and eat and talk and laugh and all this and so forth. That was my social outlet pre-COVID. And I know a lot of people, but again, the kind of deep work that I'm doing, very few of them are doing. So the few that I can talk to, we talk once a week. A lot of other people are far away. They're not in New York. So I have a lot of phone call and phone conversation, but in-person communication where I can hug somebody and have a physical contact with someone, they are very far and few for me. And I realize that I'm grieving this as well. I'm grieving the human contact. I'm grieving the loss that this has created in me. I'm grieving, and it has been big for me for the rest of the week, because I acknowledge this. And I'm saying, yes, this actually exists. I don't know what the solution is for me right now. I'm just processing this as I'm going along, and I'm just sharing it with you. Because I want to use myself as an example to kind of guide you into the kind of practice you should be looking into. Because it's not about right or wrong, but it's about being honest with yourself. Because the way Kuan Yin did it is that the deeper, it's not about changing whatever feeling you have into a good feeling. It's about going into the despair, into the brokenness, and sit with it long enough without judgment, and allow that brokenness to teach you something about yourself, to give you insights into the kind of person that you are. The personality that I have is that I am an introvert, but at times I can play an extrovert. I can become extroverted when I need to, like I'm teaching and I can speak and I can present, and I can do all of this, but by nature, I'm truly an introvert. I'm very shy and very timid, and I tend to, I'm always in social situation, I'm always the wallflower. Unless somebody engage me and draws me out, and then I can step out. So I know this about my nature, and I even, the thought even occurred to me a day ago, well, maybe this is the way your life is. Maybe this is your karma. This is what's supposed to happen with you. Like you're supposed to have this kind of sedentary life, and you have to accept this is who you are. And you're not that extroverted, you're not, but that there's a part of me that missed and that feel a sense of loss for having the human contact. The kind of stuff that when there is WISAC and we're in person, or there's a class and we hug each other and there's genuine love being transmitted from my body into somebody else, or vice versa. And I know, given everything else that's going out there, this is not the time for it, but I have to acknowledge that the grief was not just about my mom. A big part of it was about that specific thing. A sedentary lifestyle. Now, I did acknowledge when I shut down around March of 2000, and I created social distancing, and I did all that stuff, that this is something I'm going to have to do for a while, but it's being to wear down on the balance and the economy of my psyche. It came at a price. And the price is that I feel a sense of loss over this very specific thing. Now, it could be for you that it's not grief that you're experiencing. It could be that it's fear of other kinds. I think those fear, however, will eventually will all lead into fear, because if you're feeling fear because you're losing your job, if you're feeling fear because that fear and that loss of that financial support will show up as grief. It will show up as a loss, as something missing. So it's to sit down and to figure out, right now, I don't know where this is leading, but this is the exploration that I'm in, that whatever, or if you're an aggressive person, if, for example, it's a work situation kind of thing, you might find that you're on animosity or with somebody at work, you might, or friends for that matter, you might decide that you're going to go in the attack and try to do X, Y, Z, or you want to be right, and whatever shows up, stop blaming yourself for not being good enough, for not being perfect. Rather, sit with the feeling and acknowledge quietly and honestly, this is what I'm feeling right now. And sit with it for a few days and say to whatever that feeling is, you're here to teach me something. What are you trying to tell me? What is it that I'm not seeing that you're trying to teach me? Because that feeling is going to give you a clarity. Ultimately, when it's resolved, when the whole process is finished, it's going to give you clarity about something in your life. And that clarity will help you change something. Because the thing we need to do as we're transitioning from 3D into 5D is that we have to change. You cannot enter 5D if you're still behaving, acting, feeling the way you are in 3D. We have to change. And all of these things are opportunity for us to let go, to change, to accept the new. Now, it so happened that Saturn is influencing us now, and it's retrograde. And Saturn deals with mostly the inner structures that are about government, institutions. This is why a lot of things that are government policy, government related, or war or battle are really big right now. Because Saturn, when things are not aligned and Saturn is influencing, it will unroot what is stuck energy. Now, if in your life right now, while you're doing your morphogenic listening, you're feeling stuck energy, like I was feeling like I had lead inside of me, this is certainly a feeling of stuck energy, that something was blocking my esophagus. So I sat with it. I sat with it for 3 days to figure out exactly what it was. And I became irritated, I was agitated, I was jumping out of my skin. I'm like, this is not my normal self. I have alignment, I have clarity, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I am not feeling any of these of the above. What the hell is wrong with me? And when I begin to realize, okay, this is information that's coming through, sit with it. And that piece, which is about the kind of lifestyle I've been living since COVID started, since we went on lockdown in March, was not visible to me. I didn't see it. Okay? And I'm certainly grateful that this feeling, because your body knows the truth before you can process it. Energy doesn't lie. Your energy body will tell you the truth. Very often, it is our mind that is not prepared to know that truth. So as this was happening for me, slowly and gradually, I began to realize, okay, I need to, acknowledge this part of my life. Either I socialize more, I reintroduce more social interaction in my life, or but I have to do, given we're still in the, there's still COVID going out there. I know too many people who have been infected of recent days. Another client called me to tell me her son just got infected just last night actually texted me to tell me this. There are too many people that I know that are struggling with this for me to go all crazy. But a desire, I have to acknowledge, there is not even a desire, there is a need for me to have social interaction. And it's a normal human need because we're a social animal. Any questions, any comments so far?
Yeah, I have a comment. As you know, I changed my job recently. It's the same job but different place. And I must say I was surprised when I walked into this other environment with different people, younger people, more happy people. When I was in the prior job, I mean, I was much happy than they were, and I was happy enough. But when I stepped into this other job, I realized how I was like happy maybe 10%, where I can be happy. If they were happy 5%, I was happy 25%. But I realized that with this new group, I can be happy 85%. It's like night and day. So it was also a big wake-up call for me that, yes, the part of it was just the environment. And it's not who I am, not to say, oh, that's how I am, but more like that's the environment, you know. At some point you said that maybe that's how I am, but my sense is that it's more what's going on than not, you know, not claiming it, that that's who you are, right? Because if we, you know, if we could do Wisak, and if we could go to the park and sit on a lawn, right, and talk, it would be a very different experience. So I just wanted to mention that. And I also found, like you said, a lot of people getting sick, particularly kids. I know at least two families where their kids ages 1 and 5, and then the other 6 and 9, and they both got sick within last 2 weeks, that they didn't get sick all this time since it started. So, but what I find also helpful, like even if I just go to the movies with my mask on, and I experience the movie with people, especially if I go during the day when it's not too crowded, I feel like I've participated, you know, and I find it helpful too. So these are just not to think that that's maybe it's you as much as just what's going on, you know.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ursula. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Now I know my nature, and thank you for sharing that, Ursula, but I tend to be an introvert. I observe quite a bit, and I interact less than other people. And I know at times when I do interact and when I do come out, when I do say something, sometimes people interpret it as me passing judgment. I'm not a judgmental person. Often I observe things, and in fact, more than 50% of the time, when I perceive something in somebody's behavior, it takes me a very, very long time to mention it. Because in my consciousness, in my mind, if I observe it, it's because it's something that I had dealt with in the past. Because you can only teach what you're trying to learn. And so I have the instinct to always think to myself when somebody's struggling through something, God is smart. The same way God reached me and was able to help me overcome this obstacle, God will help them. Unless I see that their life is in danger, in which instance I will come up and say, you're going through a challenge. I think if you don't mind, I can share this insight with you. I think you should handle it in a different way. That's about it. Okay? But, and again, when you play that role for other people and you're guiding them all the time, there are lots of things about my grief that I've discovered. And I want to go over this to kind of like explain a little bit about some of the background as well. A friend that I've known for a long time, actually my first student, she was there when no one was there. This is going back almost 15 years ago. When my mother passed, I didn't hear from her. After we sat, she did call me to talk to me. I called her back. She says to me, oh yeah, I spoke to your sister when your mother passed. I understood that mom passed and etc. And I didn't want to call you because WISAC was going to happen because mom passed on the 12th, WISAC on the 15th. I didn't want to disturb you. I know you were preparing, blah, blah, and so on and so forth. And then as soon as she said this, she immediately went into, by the way, I have a question for you. Do you know blah, 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 blah? And she started to ask me a spiritual question. I was so devastatedly hurt. I was so deeply hurt by that, because nowhere in her saying, I wanted to call you, did she ever say, I am sorry for the passing of your mom. I'm sorry for your loss. Even out of politeness, she never mentioned this. Because the call was, I tried to call you, and I understood what was going on, and now I'm calling you. And then it was a spiritual question. And I didn't understand why I was so upset. I mean, I went into a foul, foul place. And I realized that as a spiritual teacher, I may be the strength and the person that everybody goes to get clarity. But when something that big happens to me, my human nature needs comfort too. And there was nothing about that communication with her that was about comfort. Not one acknowledgement about the passing of my mom, not one, I am sorry, not one condolences, nothing. So I'm learning quite a bit about my own human needs. As I said, I discovered that need, that I need people. When you're grieving, one of the things that you need when you're grieving, and this is really important when you have a loss, whether it's a loss of a job, loss of money, loss of a family member, loss of relationship, loss of mobility, loss of connection with people. Once you're talking to somebody and you're explaining this to them, you need somebody to mirror and acknowledge the loss. This is a simple human need. Somebody needs to acknowledge, I am so sorry for the loss. This is emotional intelligence 101. Whereas if it is not acknowledged, you feel that your pain and your discomfort that you're feeling, that you're trying to communicate to someone else, is completely ignored. There you are with a giant wound, like your entire gut is open, and they are pretending that they don't see it. I'm saying this because all of us are grieving. The whole planet is grieving. And we need to acknowledge this about each other and be a support. If you have somebody in your life that's grieving, whether it is an actual physical loss of somebody in their life, or it's an emotional grief, or some emotional loss, or it's a financial loss, I am so sorry for your loss. Is there anything I can do for you? Can I pray for you? Can I send you energy? Do you need me to take you somewhere? That kind of empathy. It's not approval that I was seeking from her, but I've known her long enough and we have a long history. I just wanted an acknowledgement of my human pain and my own human suffering. And the fact that I didn't receive it made me feel like, why did she call me? What was this conversation about? Again, the other need that I discovered, as I said, the grief was not just for me that I'm experiencing, is not just about the loss of my actual mom, but it's also, I'm grieving the fact that I have a human need to have social interaction. And I've been living a sedentary life since March of 2020. And that part of me desire to have a real hug, a real social setting. For those of you who've been at Guyville with me, you know how it goes. I cook for days and for hours. I spend time talking to everyone. This is who I am. This is my environment, my milieu. And not having this, as I said, I have only one friend. Once a week, we go out for lunch. That's the extent of my social interaction since March of 2020. Of course, I see my family, you know, but in terms of social life, I don't have one. And again, it was my choice. It's not that people would not be interested in being with me. It was my choice because of the condition and the landscape we're moving through for me to feel a sense of safety. Any questions, any comments that you may have? So when you go deep in the morphogenic listening, and whatever feeling may show up for you, whether it is you're feeling rage or anger, because that's one of the part of grief. I'm not saying it has to be grief. It could be another feeling. Because the reason I'm using this emotion because it's more recent for me. But let's say, for example, this happened Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for me. But over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when I went into the field, I was ecstatically happy and I had perfect clarity. And I want to contrast the two for you, because I had said to you that 50% of the time, when you go into this morphogenic field and you're really listening deeply to yourself, more than 50% of the time, you're going to find joy, you're going to find clarity, and you're going to find alignment. But when you do find something that's uncomfortable, for me, it was a constriction and a tightness, stuck energy in my core. When you find that kind of stuck energy, do not qualify it as a negative. Because too many of us have the negative and bad habit of going in our core with a giant flashlight looking for darkness. The morphogenic listening exercise is not about you going in your core. And the same is true for the Dantian exercise. It's not about you going into your core looking for darkness. It's to go into the blessed field and to allow what energetically, what your body is going through at the moment, at that very moment. You have to be in the present and the now. At that very moment, energetically, you have to allow your energy body to speak to you and to bring forth whatever wants to emerge, neutral to whatever the outcome may be. Let it be a surprise and let it be something that's unexpected. And as it shows up, acknowledge whatever shows up as ultimately, even if it's a discomfort, being presented to you for your benefit. Now, I have sensed, for example, today, going back into the field and doing all of this meditation, and I'm getting other sensations. I'm beginning to perceive other things. It's not just that awareness, but I'm seeing other things as well. And as I'm beginning to perceive them and sense them, I don't know what they are as yet, but it feels like discomfort, other discomfort. And for most people who are scanning, or have the negative habit of looking for negativity. The moment they feel discomfort, it's a demon or it's evil, there's some darkness involved. No, I'm feeling pressure and a discomfort. It's somewhere inside my head, near my eyesight. It's a discomfort. Whatever it is, and again, because I'm doing this for 10 minutes at a time, whatever shows up for that 10 minutes, I acknowledge it to the degree that I can for 10 minutes. Then I move on and I go do other spiritual exercise. The next day I go back to it, I do it again for 10 minutes. And eventually, as you repeat it, again, circling Jericho, the wall of Jericho, you keep circling and circling, eventually it will open up into a knowing. A deep and profound knowing, because what you're doing is that you're listening to the inner wisdom, because the knowledge of your true nature, your true path of ascendance does not exist in a book. It does not exist in the exercise that I'm giving you. The true teacher is your energy body. The true teacher is within you. Now you have to learn how to communicate with it. And that's what I'm trying to bring forth for you. It's not a skewed perception looking for darkness, nor looking for positivity, but it's a neutral relationship to whatever that morphogenic field, which, as I said, it's not just because the moment you are in your torsion field, your head, your mind and heart coherence, the moment you're in that relationship, you're in sync. The moment you're in sync, you're hooked up to the entire multiverse, that huge network. And the network is a complex dance of balance and equilibrium. And they are deep and profound in celestial beings, aspects of divinity, and divinity itself that's trying to rebalance, equilibrate, and bring you into neutrality. Because the ultimate aim of all of this is for you and I to be a perfect witness. It's not us having skewed views or perception. Dr. Stone, in all of his teaching, every time he's invoking the entire cosmic and spiritual hierarchy, the first thing he calls the silent watchers of the cosmos. They are the perfect witness. You observe without having any stake into what you're looking at. You witness, you watch, and then you let the situation unfold in front of you. Poignant this for self. Watching, because when you sit with your pain and your suffering deep enough, and in that kind of neutral fashion, the wisdom, if there were multiple people involved, the karma that's related to this, all of this becomes very clear. Because if you're charged and you have a certain way of perceiving it, and you always felt like I was victimized, or you wanted to hit and hurt back and attack back, if you have all of these charges, you will never get the clarity. But if you sit with it and just observed it and looked at it, days in and days out, and you just allow it to evolve, all of a sudden, there's going to be a profound insight. There's going to be something else that pops up for you. And then you're going to see, wow, I didn't see this before. So she ended up, by listening to herself and being the perfect witness to herself, she ended up creating profound healing for herself. And what then followed the healing, because of the insight she had, is that now she could hear the pain and the suffering of others. And given that she had experienced this and she knew how, she can now teach it to other people. She can bring them the clarity and the insight that she knows. Now, it is true that as human beings, if there was an accident and there are 10 witnesses, and you ask them what they saw, each person will give you a different version. Slightly different, not completely different, but slightly different. And again, it's because people are charged, they have different way of perceiving things, etc. But if you're as neutral as you can be by being in that coherence, in that mind and heart coherence, you're going to get to a point where it's not going to be an issue for you. You don't have to project your feeling into what you're observing. Any questions, any comments? I know that you have questions and comments, you're just being shy.
Okay, Pierre, I'm struggling to wrap my head around the last two classes. I think we talked about in the last one, releasing to Kuan Yin and not doing the endless surveying of the territory within that will show emotional triggers that could impact us and therefore impact the collective consciousness or add to the collective consciousness that is at this point 1 month away from triggering or not World War III. That's the timeline I'm following, at least from the reflect channeling that you did. This exercise sounds very healing, you know, to address each individual, well, I call it negative emotion, just the emotion that is, and to render healing in that way versus surrendering to ask Kuan Yin to transform it for us. So I'm trying to decide which is the way that is the recommended pattern to follow.
Okay, you do both. You sit with it, you learn the lesson, you get the clarity and the insight, because if you keep asking Kuan Yin to take it away from you before you learn the lesson, you will have not learned nothing. Right? So you first sit with it, you understand it, you process it, you allow it to teach you, because it's there as a teacher. And once you have the insight, then you then call upon Kuan Yin and ask him. For example, for me now, I know I have to change my lifestyle from being so isolated and so monk-like, so monastic, into a little bit more social, because I need to restore balance. And I don't know exactly how to do this, so I'm going to pray to Kuan Yin and ask Kuan Yin to help me. Did that help?
That makes great sense, Pierre. What worries me is that we have 1 month.
Don't worry about it. Janice, don't worry about it, because you are one of almost 8 billion people, okay? And you cannot take the burden of 8 billion people and put it on your shoulder. It's not your responsibility. Worry solely about bringing Janice into a place of being as neutral as possible. That's it.
Mm.
It's too much burden for you to carry. Because if you did carry all that burden, you would fail. It's not your responsibility to kind of grow for the rest of the planet.
So to do our part,
yes,
piece by piece is enough,
That's
rather than try to wipe the chalkboard clear.
Yes, and I don't believe that Lord Melchizedek implied. I'm in the process of putting all of the channeling from RESAC online with you, and I'm going to send you a code, an access code, probably tomorrow, so that you can re-listen to the channeling. I don't believe Lord Melchizedek actually implied for us to carry the burden of the world. Rather, I think he was saying that we need to go within and find in what ways are we contributing.
I see. All right. So it is, I'm sure, not possible for all of humanity to release their emotions that could present more proclivity to World War III, but rather the way showers, as you call them, the 134,000, to be making that effort that will tip the scale. But what you're saying really is that even that is too much for us to worry about, and that piece by piece is the best.
Yeah, work with integrity within yourself. And when you create the peace within you, you know, you're nothing more than this puzzle piece in this big tapestry. But you cannot worry about solving the puzzle on the other side of the board. So you can only fit into the corner that you're supposed to fit. And the way you do this is by resolving and becoming at peace within yourself. And the moment you do this, that part is solved. And if everybody were to do exactly the way you're doing, the issue would be solved in no time. This is why it's a collective rescue.
So it is not a situation of no stone unturned, but turn the stones that you can find. And
and it has to be with more importantly, go internally and turn the stone that's within you. Create.
There are multiple, probably, as we go back lifetimes, you know, that we care.
Yeah. And again, don't let it scare you. Don't let it scare you. Rather, whatever the fear, there's past battle and past warring and all that occur, sit with it. Again, the example I just used with grief, you can do exactly the same thing. Just sit with it. And then try to, as you get the feeling and the sensation, what was I thinking during that lifetime that made me believe this was correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
What's the lesson that I'm supposed to learn today?
Thank you.
You see what I'm saying? And the moment that happened, it's not a blame game. We can't change the past. It's already occurred. Let's move forward. Let's be proactive. Let's move forward. Whatever occurred, it's already occurred. And then here I am now today. I'm noticing that this had happened. Okay, so I was thinking incorrectly. That was a mistake. But I'm not looking at it as a mistake. I'm looking at it as a process of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here I am now. If you don't have the clarity to know, sometimes the issue is so emotional and so profound and so deep, we don't have the clarity to know what's the correct reaction to the situation. So at that moment, I call upon a higher power. Kuan Yin, help me find, give me the clarity. That's
Gotcha.
why I'm saying we use both, right?
Thank you, Pierre.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else?
I just I don't know what class this was, Pierre, but soon after we said you did the meditation, you called it creating inner peace that you sent us. I don't remember if this was this class, but there was directly because in response to that question where I had the same question, like how do I address this? So I don't know if people have that, but that might be helpful too.
Yeah, I did send it to everybody.
It was not class.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I just want to mention that might be helpful as well.
Yeah, it's like 2 classes ago or something like that. Yeah.
2 or 3 classes, I think. It was right after the WISAC.
Yes.
And that was in the response to that.
Yes.
To that question, that channeling.
Yes.
It's called creating inner peace.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Now, there is a curious relationship between the observer and the object. There was that famous double slit experiment that scientists did years ago. I'm not going to go through all detail. You can actually go Google this to kind of get an understanding of it. But scientists were observing on a very photographic and sensitive membrane the behavior of electron. And they put a slit in a solid pattern, and they were expecting the electron to behave like a particle. And because it has a mass, it has a, and as long as they were expecting for it to behave like a particle, the photographic membrane that was behind where the electrons were being projected showed that it was a particle. So one day, the scientists left the machine on and they went to lunch. They went out. When they came back, they realized that the electron was behaving like a wave, not a particle. They begin to be very concerned and worried because it goes against the laws of physics. This is a particle. Why is it that we're observing it like a wave? So they set up camera behind the slit to kind of like observe what was happening. They repeated ad nausea. They kept doing it over and over again. And it so happened that what they discovered ultimately was that when the observer, meaning the scientists, expected what they were projecting and bombarding to behave like a particle, the photographic membrane recorded particle. When they expected it to behave like a wave, it recorded like a wave. And it's the famous double slit experiment, which basically is saying that the observer is creating reality by his own expectation. I'm saying this to you because I want you to understand the kind of control that each one of us individually has, and particularly as it relates to what I was just saying to Janice. about creating peace and all that. You can only worry about your little slice. There's another almost 8 billion people on Earth. If 10% of the Earth population desires peace and want the peace, and this is the expectation or the intention we're projecting, that's what we would have. Right? And I'm saying it even on a deeper level, a much more profound and deeper level, that when we're talking about the silent watchers of the cosmos, and I'm saying that they are, because the highest state of enlightenment is to be simply a witness. In ancient mystery school teaching, they used to describe it differently by saying that that state of consciousness is a state of being the unmoved mover. Listen carefully to the wording. The unmoved mover. The unmoved mover is the observer and the witness that's outside, that has supposed to be blank slate tabula rasa. But nonetheless, the focus of that observer will influence the outcome. And this is what holding space, a term that's bastardized and misused in the light community over and over again. This is what holding space really is. When you're neutral to everything and you're observing somebody struggling, but you have hope for them, and you're projecting hope that they will get it. And that projection is the double slit experiment. And this is how you broadcast. You don't go into the inner details and tell people, move this way, don't do it this way, sit that way, cross your leg, walk this way, wear this robe. There's none of that. You just project to the person or the collective or the situation you're trying to solve hope that peace is a birthright. Because the silent watchers of the cosmos are doing that for us. I used to watch, read a lot of comic books when I was younger. And because the comic book characters were basically fertile ground for me, for my spirituality, my spiritual development, because a lot of these people with superpowers, because a lot of it is actually very deep, because there were characters that were literally, particularly in Marvel comics that I read a lot of, there's a character that's godlike, and they're all different celestial beings and all, and so on. I won't get into all the details, but the reason I'm mentioning it, it's because there was a celestial being called Galactus. And he's literally a celestial. There's a collective of being in that thing that I call celestial. And they're as big sometimes as a planet, or sometimes even bigger. But he is the negative aspect of the collective, and his purpose was to devour planet. And he came in to devour the earth and to destroy it. And a group of heroes with superpower tried to oppose him, but they are outclassed Galactus is way bigger and better than equipped than them, they will never be able to confront him. But there is a collective of being that are called, lo and behold, in the comic book, the Watchers. And this being shows up to witness the cosmic event, which would have been the destruction of the earth. But in the process of doing this, he influenced the outcome by stopping the destruction, because one of the ways in which Galactus does this is that he reads other beings' mind. And by the Watcher being present and witnessing what was going on, his power over these human heroes blocked Galactus from reading their mind. And thus he influenced without influencing. I read this, I must have been 16, no, I was 18, 19. It blew my mind. I was like, wow, this is so deep. And I was already part of the mystery schools. I was studying spirituality at the time. I just started it when I was 17. And, and I remember how a profound impact that this little comic book had on me. That these cosmic beings, as they're coming in and they're projecting hope that we're going to get it. That projection is enough to create wind behind our sails. So I wanted to make you understand the nuances that may exist over how we radiate, broadcast, and attract. Because if you're broadcasting, you're going to attract as well. It's a two-way street. It's like giving and receiving. Any questions, any comments?
My fantasy medicine was Merlin instead of Galacticus or whatever it was. But it's still the same exciting thought that we have within us, the power to create our reality and to make the changes needed. And for me, that's a direction I choose to try to move into.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all, because the storytellers, the people who are writing these books, they're channeling. These stories or the mythos, the modern mythos, they're telling you deep and profound spiritual teachings. And you know, up till the time I was in my 30s, I read comic books from my teenage years, since I was back in the Caribbean, until I was in my 30s, because the stuff was just too rich. All these heroes and powerful beings and all that. And as I studied my spirituality deeply, they were matching. They were actually matching. Any other questions, any other comments?
Can you hear me, Pierre?
Yes, Kit.
Yeah, it reminds me of what the just simple saying, as you think, so you create.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Direct and profound. Yes, absolutely. All right, let's take 5 minutes for a break, water break, and then we'll do the closing meditation on the back end. 5 minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I go. Let your head and your heart sync with each other. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And realize that you can perceive the entire morphogenic field (360 degrees) all around. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. Become aware of your expanded connection to the morphogenic field of everything that exists on planet Earth, in our solar system, in the Milky Way galaxy, which extend to more than 1 trillion planets. To everything that exists in this universe and all of the multi-universes. Now go back into your core. As you release all attachments, fears, and control. And you surrender into this great emptiness and vastness and luminosity. Be a perfect witness to yourself. And in your core, simply notice what you noticed. In deep neutrality, notice what you noticed. Keep breathing deeply and slowly, and let your awareness simply drop and listen to any sensations, feelings, perceptions, and knowing that this examination is revealing to you. Where in my body is this sensation? without qualifying it as good or bad. What am I feeling? Is it one feeling? Or a combination of multiple feelings? Keep breathing deeply and slowly. What is the first feeling? What is the second feeling? Are there any others? Have I ever felt any of these feelings before? Listen. Listen as if the more than 50 trillion cells in your body had ears. without any judgments, blame, or guilt and shame. Go deep into this sensation and let it teach you the insights the clarity and the breakthrough that it holds for you. What is the ill-conceived perception and fear connected to this teaching moment? I call forth Lady Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion and mercy, says that she who hears the suffering of the world help me find the healing and transmutational module that this teacher in my core is trying to give me. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome, Janice.
Beautiful, effective, and beautiful.
Wonderful. Glad to hear. How you all, the rest of you feeling?
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, everyone. I will not keep you as we're getting very close to the end of the session. Keep practicing this in that manner without any judgments and allow the morphogenic field to inform you. Because whatever you're feeling, because a lot of times it's actually very positive and very clear. It's ease, it's joy, it's all kind of sensation. But if ever there was a moment where something feels like there is a contraction or there is a discomfort, yield into it and listen carefully because it's trying to teach you something, as we just did just now. All right, everyone. Sending you my deepest love. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and please like this video and share it with your friends. If you're listening to us on Patreon, thank you for listening to us. Thank you for your support. And I will talk to you next week. Sending you the deepest love. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Bonsoir, Pierre.
Bonsoir.
Good night, everyone.
Je t'aime.
À toi, moi aussi. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.